So you can choose to stand, or if you want to sit down, you can do that. Welcome to, this is now, I think, our fourth EDEL 599 Capstone event. And it's wonderful to see the number of people who've been able to come in person. And actually, when Suzanne and I set things up, we were thinking, oh, we probably have a lot more people presenting from a distance. So it's nice to have everybody here. We do have 2 distance presentations. We were going to set it up in a second room, but since there's only 2, I think what we'll do is loop them through at the end when we're finished and having snacks so people can take a look at those 2. As most of you are probably aware, the Capstone presentations are really the culminating experience for people's master's degree. So congratulations to make it to this point. And I think you'll enjoy seeing everybody's presentations. We will also be recording the presentations, and what we'll be doing probably after a little bit into spring session is we'll be posting them up on the grad website. So if you want to send any guests who couldn't make it, or you want to take a look at some of your peers in the other room, you could do that. Before we send the presenters off to their other room, because we've got 2 rooms happening here, just a couple of housekeeping details. We've got the program. If you don't have one, I think there's a couple more copies over by the coffee when you're on your way out. We've given you, even though our instructions were to have sort of 5 to 7 minute presentations, we will give you 10 minutes if you need. But Suzanne and I will both be doing the 2-minute warning, just so that we end up using everybody's time well, and the person at the end doesn't go, when is it going to be my turn? We also have given about 5 minutes in between just for shifting technologies, and we can help you if you haven't run into any trouble with that. I think we've got it good to go. The other thing is when you're all done in each group, you can feel free to come in for some celebrations and snacks. If this group is still ongoing, when your group finishes, just if you might want to come in and watch a couple of the end presentations.
We shouldn't. We have 5 to 5.
Well, we should be, exactly. I know.
I don't know. It's a long way to research over there.
We'll see how it goes. All right.
I'm the tough one.
So welcome, and we're looking forward to seeing your presentations, and congratulations as well. So we will see you all back in the room for some snacks after. And Susanna, you can take your group, and
we will be on time.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be the first one to do my capsule presentation. My name is Nannan Wang, and my advisor is Dr. Zhou Wu. First, I want to introduce myself first. I had a 2-year English teaching in China and 3-year Chinese teaching in Canada. And during these teachings, I found there is a big difference in pedagogy, and as well as the different cultures. So I'm thinking, oh, it is still a lot of things to learn for me. This is why I take my master program of education. And when I was teaching here, I always thinking about some phenomena happened in China's education. There's 2 cartoons, maybe give you some ideas about that. The first one, the teacher said, I expect you all to be independent, innovative, critical thinkers who will do exactly as I say. This is in China, some teachers say, oh, we'll do some new curriculum, but still we have to do this way. And the second there is like, I know you are as excited as I am about today's lesson. But unfortunately, the students feels very boring and sleepy. So this is my goals of my master programs of education: improve my English skill, broadening my educational view, enriching my educational professionalism, and improve my teaching practice. I chose this piece of work from the EDEL 567 literature review. The topic is the task-based language teaching in ESL or EFL context. And I looking for some benefits, challenges, and solutions for the education. And this course is very challenging for me. First, English is my second language. So this course is an online course. I have over limited on this course. The second, I have to coping with many new terminologies. Third, conducting library and online search for relevant sources. I think this is this is quite new for me. And I spend a lot of time to looking for some good studies for this literature review. And then processing and synthesizing large amounts of information, and lastly writing a bibliography. Why I choose this piece of work? Because I think this is an interesting topic. And this topic is related to EDSE 501 and EDPY 588, which I took during my master programs. They all talk about some task-based language teaching. And I have a lot of passion on this teaching, so I want to search for more information about the future teaching practice. And second, this work is relevant to my past and future teaching practice. Third is this is a good opportunity to increase my knowledge about the TBLT approach. And besides that, this is a high score during my papers. Okay. In this course, I learned how to conduct a library and online search. And then I learned how to write a literature review on a certain topic. In my topic, TBLT, the researches I found is like the scholars confirming the benefits of the TBLT for students. They have a lot of research to prove that. And then at the same time, I found that there are lots of gaps in the Asian context. So the first one is a theoretical gap. Most of the Asian teachers don't know what task and the TBLT really are. They have some misunderstandings about them. And the second is a theoretic and practice gap. Most of teachers never truly used TBLT before. I think so. When I was teaching in China, I think I never truly used TBLT before. And the challenges. There are some challenges I learned from that. It's like the teachers' misunderstandings, the teachers' deficiency in the spoken English, the conflicts between with educational values and traditions, and the teachers and some students avoid to use English. And another problem is the classroom management and the time pressure. Before, when I was teaching English in China, there are 80 students in my class. 80. And there are some there are some that cannot match with the public assessment demands. And these implications I found from this from the research, like this, the Asian teachers should adapt the TBLT rather than adopt totally from the Western style. So the teachers should trust their own voice and develop a pedagogy which is suitable for their own educational and cultural situation. And from this course, I found I improved my reading and writing abilities. And we built up a good good friendship with the classmates and the instructors. Instructor is Dr. Julia Alice and Shanra Bizang, who can give me a lot of help. And I became more confidence in my teaching, and I feel like I know more education, I love more. And my future plans. In the future, definitely I will apply TBLT, which I learned here, into my teaching practice. If I go back in China in the future, I will share what I learned here with my colleagues. And we will do some class observation, and we will give the feedback with each other to learn how to use the TBLT. Truly. And I recommend my principals to give more opportunities for teachers to do some pre-service and in-service teachers education about this new curricular training. The last, I want to thank you for everyone here, and I would like to extend my thanks to all my professors. Professionalism, patience, enthusiasm to help me during my difficult time of the master programs of my education. And I want to thank you, Dr. Zhou, Dr. Olenka Balash, Dr. Heather Blair, Dr. Bill Dung, and Dr. Julia Alice and Shara Bijan, and Dr. Leila Renta, Dr. Shara Watt, and everyone in education office and classroom whoever helped me. Thank you very much.
I'm the assistant principal on leave right now for North Haven School. It's a small elementary school in the northwest of Calgary. And I did my undergrad here at U of A, and then I'm back doing my master's. And this is actually the first time I've been back in this building since I met Jill, my former instructor here, to talk about starting my master's program. So it's very nice to be back, and I couldn't find the washrooms, which was quite funny. So I jumped ahead because I could talk about this topic for days. When I started my master's, I had a very idealized vision, but I also had a really clear vision of what happens to kids when they struggle with reading, and what happens with that downward spiral, where they start out, whether they start out behind or they struggle, and the engagement loses, and they just continue to spiral downwards. And so this is actually a visual I created in my very, very first course of my master's. And I was very focused on vocabulary and how vocabulary contributed to that, and how kids that have high vocabulary, well, it's easy for them to engage in reading tasks, and so they acquire reading quite easily, and then the opposite students do the opposite. What I realized as I started my work in my master's was that Stanovich talked about that as the Matthew effect 10 years before I graduated high school. And it gave me the chance throughout my program, because I was able to look at the same topic within the stance of socioeconomic status, language, culture, even gender, and then finally in Carol's class this term, I was able to look at it through the lens of mental health and anxiety and trauma. We have a severe behavior class in our school, so there are 8 boys, usually boys, and they're all diagnosed with either ODD or conduct disorder or things like that, but most of them also have an LD designation or learning disability. And most of them do struggle with reading or have previously struggled with reading in a regular classroom context. And we also have quite a few kids in our regular program, regular classrooms, that just struggle with anxiety, either formally diagnosed or not. And so when I started looking into this and researching, I found out that there was quite a high prevalence of anxiety with young children, usually diagnosed around junior high, but often starting at age 6, which is when we start school, when we start learning how to read formally. And then started to look a little bit at the trauma kids and behavior kids. And it's kind of the chicken or the egg thing. Do they come to school with a lack of exposure to text because of the behaviors and the anxiety, and so their parents aren't reading to them because they're reading themselves on the behaviors or the anxiety, or they're doing timeouts, or they're driving to speech language and psychologists and things like that? And then does that anxiety cause them to struggle with engaging with reading tasks? And then there's also children who just come into school and have a hard time learning how to read, and that can cause anxiety. And so there's this reciprocal relationship, and it's very bidirectional, and there's actually very little research into that relationship. We know a lot about trauma and anxiety, we know a lot about reading, but putting them together, there isn't, and so that's why I thought that this was an important area to look into. So I had to really look in this course on the theoretical grounding of what I believe about reading and what I know. Often the mistakes that we make as adults, well-meaning parents and teachers, are from a behaviorist approach. So read the letters on the page, tell me what happened at the end, and my interpretation of what this text was about. And so looking at the different models of literacy and reading acquisition and how those work together, and then using the social constructivist approach to really mitigate those reading problems and those reading anxieties so that children who are struggling with reading don't develop anxiety specifically about reading, but also for children who have anxiety and trauma already don't develop reading programs and then anxiety and that spiraling process. So the classroom implications that I specifically looked at through the social constructivist lens are the security and trust of the child. Normally when we think of security, we think of the physical security of the building, of the classroom, and we think of trust between the teacher and the student. But what I found in my readings was that it's also about the security in the community and me being able to bring my home literacy practices, my background knowledge, my background experiences, even if it's from a video game and it's first-person shooter, my teacher doesn't believe in that, it's still a connection to text if that's what I bring in. And how can we use that to our advantage rather than not getting off right away and stopping that student from engaging in that literacy task. Metacognition and self-efficacy were really important. Children's ability to self-regulate and think about their thinking. I think that we think about that a lot with just our reading strategies that we teach, like inferring and making connections, but giving kids the language and the practice to be able to do that within a community and be accepted. And that success in maybe being able to make connections during a picture walk, making that child feel like, oh, I can do this and move forward. And then also with that success was the access to appropriate text. And we all use leveled text in classrooms and in schools, especially at the primary level. So it's not just the leveled text, but it's also access to a variety of genres and a variety of types of text that are going to be engaging to that child. I walk so many times into Division II classrooms where you've got just rows and rows of novels and picture books about puppies and horses and rainbows and prairie girls, and you can see the boys just kind of glaze over. And if you can get some other types of text, that will encourage some kids, but getting some other things in there that will engage other students. So I've only been administrative for a couple of years, but I still teach half-time because I'm in a small classroom. And so I really get the wonderful opportunity to work with the kids in my teachers' classrooms. And so not only am I working with the students and moving this forward, I also have the increased ability to work with the teachers and to model the kinds of things that are going to help their kids to engage effectively and with confidence in reading tasks and to mitigate some of that anxiety and to move teaching practice forward, because I think that behaviorist teaching practice of do this then do that is easy to hang on to when we first start our teaching practice, and it's very hard to let go and let the kids lead the practice and lead the reading tasks in the classroom. And then I've really learned that there needs to be a lot of further inquiry into the connection between anxiety and reading, whether you call it reading anxiety or just reading and anxiety. I was able to find very little. There's some work done in second language instruction on actual language anxiety and speaking anxiety and things like that. There's a lot of test anxiety research, but there's really very little on specifically reading and anxiety. And I think that it's a really important place to look, because reading ends up being one of the most important skills that students have that carry them through into further academic life and life in general. So as a professional for myself, it's been 5 years to come to this place. And so just my own resiliency and being able to work full-time, starting my first assistant principalship while doing this work, all of it has been, it's been a lot, but it's been extremely rewarding, and it's helped me to realize what I can do. Don't know what I'm going to do with myself now. I think that my instructional leadership has changed. Instead of this is how you do it and why you should do it, more of a modeling and more of a peer coaching and more of a let's stand together and try it and see what we can come up with and what do you think, and a lot more collaborative for myself. And I think that that's really helped in my abilities to build capacity, not only with my teachers, but my parent community and with my students, and in understanding that it's not about sounding out the letters and telling me the right answers at the end of the book. It's about an experience and it's community. And then I've thought a lot about planning and implementation with school development planning and budgeting, and how do we take our resources and our time and make this work within our school, and not just have it be a top-down, my administrator told me to do this, so I'm going to try it, and then I'm going to throw it, like you said, I'm just going to throw it out the window because it didn't work. How could we really effectively implement and plan for student success?
This is Catherine.
My name is Catherine Wojcichowsky. I work with Edmonton Catholic Schools, and the project that I'd like to present is it was the final topic, or the final assignment for 545 Information Technologies of Learning. And the reason why I chose this was because you had to explain what you viewed 21st, what our 21st century education system needs. And I really enjoyed this topic because it was kind of open-ended, and it was fun, and it was more student-led. I really got into it and wanted to present something that would be useful to a staff who wasn't sure how to take on the 21st century topic. I come from a staff that was kind of at a lot of crossroads, and they weren't sure, and so I wanted to have something that was concrete for them that would start conversation and dialogue amongst our staff and get people kind of started. So yeah, that's kind of why I picked it. Now, my thoughts on 21st century learning before, so kind of when 21st century learning kind of really came to head, I actually did a year in Australia. So I wasn't here for the whole big kickoff with Edmonton, or with Alberta education and all that, so I really missed out. So what I came back to was my thoughts on what 21st century learning, and I kind of summed it up to the role of the teacher being to encourage technology, inspire students to become lifelong learners, to provide students to work together, to problem solve, and to be global citizens. Since doing this assignment, and actually my whole master's program altogether, this assignment has helped me deepen my thoughts on 21st century learning. And I have found the role of the teacher to be in the classroom. We want it more to be a co-learner, co-teacher situation. We want to learn from each other. The teacher's role is to create a classroom where students can take responsibility for reaching their learning goals. Teachers also want to help students to do their own discovering and investigating when looking for information. So it becomes more of how a student is learning rather than what a student is learning. And I found that this assignment and a few other assignments through my master's really gave you that opportunity. It was how I was going to learn, how I was going to present. It was more open-ended as opposed to you're learning this, this, and this, and this. So what I kind of summed it up to approaches for the classroom. Again, I was doing it, looking at it as eventually going into administration. How was I going to explain, how was I going to get teachers to kind of jump on this? So I figured if I gave you a certain approaches to use in the classroom, it might be helpful. So of course, group work. I personally have a love-hate relationship with your work. Depends on what kind of group you're working with. First of all, and also depends as a teacher who you're putting your students with, what the topic is, and really if it's a Friday afternoon. So but because of all this, I looked at now group work a little bit more differently. Yes, it helps with collaboration and communication, but I looked at when students are exploring, they're actually beginning to use authentic language together and develop it together. So although the topic is important, it's also how they're getting to that topic, the dialogue that comes from it. Since starting my master's program, I actually have taken all the desks out and brought in tables to my classroom, and I found instantly that the discussion and dialogue has changed. It became more natural. It wasn't like everybody quiet, and then, okay, now group work. It happened gradually, and it makes for more authentic language. And they're learning then to how to use that, and develops better meaning then. Another approach for the classroom is, of course, inquiry projects. So they're beneficial because they allow for more student direct learning. They allow for more critical thinking. They allow for the student to then be at the center of all decisions. This project really helped me learn the benefits of that because it was definitely an inquiry thing. And I could see that I became more of the learner, what I deemed important, and finding research that supported that. Another approach is, of course, technology. This course, as I said at the beginning, was information technologies in the classroom. And so, although I knew that technology was important, I think I didn't quite understand the benefit of the internet. There's a lot of questions about how to use the internet in the classroom, and this really explained it that you have to use it as a learning tool. That way students then have access to all of their, to 2 billion potential teachers, and they have it really fast. They have all the knowledge out there. Interesting enough, when I was doing this, I actually said, my husband and I have stopped watching movies the same way. Now we use it with the internet. It's like, I've seen that guy before. I've seen him. Where have I seen him before? All of a sudden, the internet is there to kind of answer that question. So, although that's not academic, but you take that, it kind of works the same way. Oh, I've seen that word before. I've seen that. I've done that before, and then they can kind of begin looking at it. It's also a way to collaborate. And they can then make meaningful connections. Now, out of this whole course, the biggest place I learned was playing games. One of the textbooks that we had to read and look into was about virtual games and the benefits of them. And I personally am not a gamer, so I looked at them as a waste of time, something I would do in the doctor's office and hide from people. I didn't want anybody to think I was wasting time. But then when I began doing research about playing games, I have found that playing games in the classroom, playing games in community, it helps build a strong community. It helps students learn to contribute. If there's a game in the charades or playing with dice, they learn how to contribute with the other one. It's also a way to inspire 21st century skills, like learning and improving. They're constantly wanting to improve in games. They're constantly wanting to learn, and they're constantly wanting to explore in games. They can learn those skills and then bring it to the forefront of their education or in their learning when they're wanting to seek more information. So to sum it up, this assignment was relevant to me because it was proving the importance of project-based learning and the relevance of having a real task and a real real topic, something that I was interested in. So I just wanted to end with this quote: "In times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with the world that no longer exists." So that's it.
I am an elementary music teacher. I teach grades 1 to 6 with Edmonton Catholic Schools. I've been teaching for 8 years, and 5 of those have been music teaching, so I've been doing it for a while. My assignment I chose to share today is a collection of music activities that is related to pieces of literature, and I created this for my early childhood class about a year ago, I think. And through research and practical examples, it shows a variety of lessons for the music class using literature. So some of the literature, I have it up there, but I also brought it. just in case you were interested. So just a big variety. Some of these are called song-based picture books. So they're actually a song that has been turned into a book, essentially. And then some are just other types of literature. So I chose to share this project because it has greatly added to my personal teaching practice. So I'm able to now create and plan lessons around literature that I can engage my students in musical learning as well. It's important to me because I was able to incorporate much of my learning from many of the courses I took in my master's. So for some of these, I was able to create ORF arrangements. So I used this one called Chandu Would Not Fall Asleep. And so I created some music for xylophones and something that they could sing, and then added other percussion and they were able to play it. Also with movement activities, so with, we're going on a bear hunt, we can do lots of movement fun stuff with that one, so I tried that with my kids one time, I really liked it. Using literature connects musical learning with regular classroom learning. So as Montgomery states about song-based picture books, such links help situate musical instruction within the broader context of the child's whole education, rather than allowing it to seem isolated in the music room. And I think this applies to all literature, not just the song-based picture books. So if literature is used, then the value of musical learning can be made apparent to parents and other teachers and administration as well. So using literature engages children in their musical learning. And just another quote, Marilyn says that children are able to respond musically in many different ways when literature and music are presented together. So with my collection, I think that I'm able to demonstrate this idea, and I have seen it in my practice as well. So when I tried some of these activities this year, I could see just what my kids are getting at. Children are engaged in the main musical learnings of singing, moving, playing instruments, creating, reading, and writing music through the literature. And I think that literature can also motivate children to engage in music as well as vice versa, so the music can motivate children to engage in literature. So I just want to share an example. So I took this book, which is officially one of my favorites now. And so I did this with my grade 5s earlier this year, and they seemed to really like it. So I've now used it with my grade 3s, and they're going to actually be presenting it at our spring concert this year. And so we read through the book, which is about the dinosaur fossils waking up and having a party in the evening, and then going back to bed. And so what I'll do is I'll show you a video of my students. You'll see them moving, you'll see them playing instruments, and you'll hear them chanting as well. So the biggest change that has come from this project for me is that I can now more regularly use literature, and I can use it with all grades. So I actually took my whole spring concert and picked pieces of literature for each grade and graded something for it, or took songs that would work with that. And so they're each going to present something based on a book that we've explored. I plan on continuing with putting more literature into my class, because I really do think that it helps the children to just really engage in the music, and then also the other way around with music, with literature too. So, thank you.
Presentation is on pre-reading for French immersion learners. My history, I studied my undergraduate degree at Grand McEwen, Université de Trois-Rivières, and Campus Saint-Jean. I'm also second language speaker, but I was born and raised in Alberta, so I'm really lucky. I graduated in 2007 from university and started teaching in Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. We started an early immersion program up there. It was a blast. I took my first master's course up there because they literally flew a teacher in from the U of A, and she hung out with us on Saturdays, and it was a fun thing to do in a town where sometimes there's not a lot to do in the winter. After 3 years, I took a sabbatical year off, traveled the world, and volunteered for the Vancouver Olympics. Of course, after that, I was broke, so I taught briefly in Red Deer before I accepted a position to start a new school in Wilmot, Alberta. I've been there since September of 2010, and 2 years ago, I became the vice principal and the inclusive education facilitator at Academy St. Albert. I guess that completely shaped where my master's went. When I was in Yellowknife, I took math courses. My goal was to do second language learning. And then I got a position and I had to teach English children how to read, which was not something I had any background in whatsoever. So I kind of told my my division that, you know, my school, I will take this job, but you guys need to pay for a couple of university courses so that I do this effectively, which ended me up in the language and literacy part of the University of Alberta, and I've loved that decision ever since. What I've learned, my experiences in learning in graduate classes have taken me on a journey, and I've learned that the more that I know, the less I feel like I know. I think most of us are in the same. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my paper and what I learned out of it. In pre-reading for French immersion learners, I learned about the early literacy predictors, the risk prediction, and the intervention. All of these things are kind of a culmination of what I learned in different classes through different classes, coming together and making sense in the exact context that I'm working in this year. When I looked at early literacy predictors, we're talking phonological awareness, oral language skills, and letter naming indicators. Risk prediction, we talked about the at-risk students, and that could be dependent on SES, vocabulary, second language, how the second language can be predicted by first language, and how early can we identify these kids and help them and target the interventions. And then I went into the interventions, the peer tutoring programs, English phonological awareness and phonemic and vocabulary. In the early literacy predictors, I learned all about phonological awareness and what onset rhyme means. Basically, onset rhyme is a very fancy term for blending, but digging through tons and tons of articles for this 5, 6, 7 literature review, it probably took me 12 articles before I actually understood what it meant. I also talked about oral vocabulary levels, and I made some inferences while I did that. I think at the beginning of my master's, I never would have made inferences, but as you kind of grow as a learner and you learn that you don't know everything, you do start to take kind of risks at inferring things based on the knowledge that you've kind of gotten from all of your courses, from your professors, and from the readings that you've done. So I inferred that the French vocabulary would probably correlate to French passive comprehension. I'm a little lost here, sorry. I talked about oral language and also the blending and the sound knowledge. Found that there was a lot of correlation between English predictors and French results 3 years later. So a lot of these studies were longitudinal over 3 to 5 years. So it was really, really interesting for me to go, oh, that's going to change my practice. In risk prediction, early identification was key. Kindergarten and grade 1, we need to get these guys early. I need to use English and French predictors, and I have to look for risks for difficulties decoding in comprehension and or in oral language. Early identification can mitigate the risk for students with difficulties learning to read in any language, be it English, French, Chinese, any type of language. Interventions. We looked into peer tutoring, and I've actually put in place a peer tutoring program based on some of the research that I've read at my school. I've seen the motivation and confidence increases that they've talked about. I've seen boys become more readers because they're allowed to bring in their DS or their video game and read it with their peer tutor. Phonological awareness and phonemic awareness training programs based on the reading programs that I read about in my literature review. We've started our own program, which is kind of a hybrid of the two programs that I explored in the paper. And vocabulary. Vocabulary has not been explored very much in the literature, to my knowledge, but it's something that I intend to look into further now that I'm going to have extra time on my hands, as well as oral language development. Basically, the conclusions, predictors are very foretelling of later results. Informed interventions initiated in a timely manner can help these kids. It can help them not to become anxious, not to become worried, not to become frustrated with learning how to read. And I need to start early, kindergarten, grade 1. My next steps from here, I plan to pick up where the research left off. I want to collaborate with my colleagues in our professional learning community to look up vocabulary as an intervention strategy, how our interventions can be more effective, and how we can enhance our French immersion programming to make sure that our at-risk students are staying in our program. Professionally for me, my intent is to go back into the classroom next year. I'm going to give up part of my administration role to have the chance to really put into place what I've learned in 7 years of master's studies. And I'll also be doing the inclusive ed portion of my assignment that has not changed. I also intend to publish 3 of the papers that I wrote throughout my master's in collaboration with other students and professors, and I am hoping to pursue my doctorate in New Zealand. So 7 years ago, I never thought that I would be talking about doing a doctorate, and that's where I'm at this point, so it's really exciting and kind of looking forward to what is to come. So thank you very much.